Today, I'd like to share Sarah's carnivore journey with you. Hi, Dave. I'll begin where you always begin and say that carnivore found me in 2018. At that time, I was living in yet another nightmare of a situation, and it was causing me significant psychological and emotional distress. I was in a state of dysregulation and desperation and didn't know what to do. I wished for a magical door to appear that I could walk through into another reality. And then one day in May, while all hopped up on allergy medication, I came across a video of Michaela Peterson talking about eating only meat. This sounded absolutely insane, as it went against everything I'd been told about health and nutrition. She was saying that not only did her arthritis clear up, but her mental health got better too. And in that moment, in my loopy state of mind, and without any deliberation at all, the decision was made to switch to a carnivore diet. My mother raised me and my fraternal twin sister to be mostly vegetarian. We ate fruits and veggies, grains, nuts, seeds, and legumes, and eggs and dairy and tinned fish. Occasionally we had chicken. I learned that eating skin and gristle and fat and bones was yucky, so I did not. A lot of what my mum concocted disgusted me and made me feel unwell. The absolute worst was stewed rhubarb, picked from the garden in the summer, served with vanilla ice cream. It was supposed to be a real treat, but it always wrecked my gut. Now the thought of eating the sour stalk of an otherwise toxic plant seems crazy to me. I often had indigestion and pain in my gut, but I figured that was just a normal thing that people didn't talk about. Occasionally at a restaurant or event or someone else's house, I would have the chance to eat a burger or a hot dog or a deli meat sandwich. I didn't like all the bread that those foods were sandwiched between, but the meat itself was divine. Feelings of guilt and shame always crept in, though, because I had learned that eating certain meat was unhealthy and unethical. My body craved it, but my mind told me that eating it made me a bad person. It gave me cognitive indigestion, so I ate my veggies and I didn't complain. I remember being hungry all the time. I often couldn't concentrate in class because my stomach was growling. At some point during high school, something influenced my sister to become a much stricter vegetarian, but thankfully, it didn't last for long. We had very different experiences growing up, but we obviously acquired a lot of the same programming. The mental unwellness started early on. For as long as I can remember, I've wondered, what's wrong with me? I didn't talk when I was growing up. I understood language just fine, but I couldn't get the words to come out of my mouth. A kid who doesn't talk doesn't make friends, and I had a very isolated, lonely childhood. I remember being quite confused about the world, about who I was, and about what things meant. I didn't know how people knew how to be how they were, or how they knew how to do what they did, let alone the why of it all. I almost felt like an outsider looking in at a world that I didn't understand, and so I did my best to connect the dots, which didn't always paint an accurate picture. I learned that grown-ups were the boss of me, and that I had to do what they said, even if it hurt me. I didn't know how to question any of it, and I certainly didn't know how to ask for help. I got good at getting good grades, and I didn't cause any trouble, so I flew under the radar, left to suffer silently, all by myself. I experienced terrible anxiety in my childhood, and public school made it unbearably worse. I remember when I learned the word stress, I mustered the courage to say, "That's me." But the teacher told me that kids don't have stress, and that was the end of that. By the time I was in high school, I had also become severely depressed. After high school, I wasn't up for torturing myself with further education, so I moved away from home and started working in restaurant kitchens. Those environments allowed me to work mostly by myself and to not have to interact with too many people, but they were a fast-paced sensory nightmare. I would get a job, burn out after a few months, have to quit to recover, and then start all over again. This pattern repeated for years. I must have done it 50 times. I also learned early on that cooks cope by consuming copious amounts of alcohol, so that's what I did too. At the same time, I began seeking help for the mental and emotional hell I was in, which became another pattern that repeated for years. I didn't know what was wrong with me, and with my significant communication difficulties, I was unable to effectively express what I was experiencing. These were professionals, so I trusted that they knew what they were doing and that they were going to help me. I was diagnosed with social anxiety disorder and severe chronic depression and PTSD, and I was given antidepressants. Being a highly sensitive person, I couldn't tolerate the side effects of the meds long term, so over and over, year after year, I was given new meds to try. I'd probably been on and off 10 different SSRIs when someone finally put me on risperidone. I may be pronouncing that incorrectly, which is an antipsychotic. I knew I was not psychotic, so I stopped taking it when I gained 20 pounds in 2 months. I was feeling beyond hopeless at that point, and I agreed to try one more antidepressant. This happened to be the magic pill that swung me too high. To the doctors, this was great news. It explained why the SSRIs didn't work. I wasn't depressed, I was bipolar. I promptly received the new diagnosis, even though I had never been manic before. I was put on mood stabilizers and was told that I would have to take them for the rest of my life. I did what I was told, but my mental health was clearly not improving. And physically, I continued to be underweight and have problems with low blood sugar, low energy, and bad sleep. I'm sure I was malnourished. People use the word waif to describe me. I never felt like I could call myself a woman because I was in a body that resembled that of a teenage boy. Even into my 30s, I wondered when I would get to grow up. In 2012, a particular jarring event triggered what I can only describe as an egoic collapse. I was 37 at the time. For 11 days, my mind was silent and I barely slept or ate. Energy coursed through me, and it felt as though it was burning away all the shit from the past, and at the same time, rewiring my brain. I stopped taking my meds cold turkey, and I understood that I was to never take them again. For the first time ever, I didn't experience any withdrawal coming off of medication. It was like a miracle. That days-long moment of clarity set me on a new path, but the old patterns of behavior and the beliefs, programming, conditioning from childhood were still running in the background, so it wasn't long before I was back in full character, full tilt boogie. But I couldn't forget what I had experienced, and I knew that this character is fundamentally not who I am. I dove into the internet and learned about adverse childhood experiences, childhood emotional neglect, complex trauma, narcissistic abuse, codependency, and medication induced bipolar disorder. I could see how I got into this mess, but I felt crazy in my head, and I knew I wasn't going to think or talk my way out of it. Nothing I ever tried had worked. I needed that door to appear. I needed it to open just a crack to shine some light on the path ahead of me so that I could stop stumbling around in the dark. And on that faithful day in May, as I listened to Michaela talk, it dawned on me that if I could eat only meat and not die of scurvy, then maybe everything I had ever been told about a healthy diet was wrong, which led me to think that maybe everything that I'd ever been told about myself could also be wrong. My mind spun up at that thought, and the world turned upside down, or maybe right side up. This was before YouTube was riddled with people talking about everything carnivore, so I went barging into the unknown territory blindly, and I did everything wrong. I didn't wean myself off the plant matter. I didn't know about electrolytes or oxalates or eating adequate fat. I dropped weight that I didn't have to lose. My energy tanked, and some days I was too weak to walk. People were scared. I was scared, but I was determined to find out what was on the other side, even if it killed me. One night, maybe a few weeks in, I had to lie down on the bathroom floor because my heart was going crazy and I felt like I might throw up or pass out or die. As I accepted my fate, whatever it would be, it was like a gear shifted in my body. And in the next instant, I felt fine. I got up, went to bed, and had the best sleep of my adult life. It still took my body several months to adapt. I obviously had a lot of healing to do, but over time I noticed my mind had calmed down, my nervous system had calmed down, my gut felt better, and my energy got better. I was putting on weight, a lot of which was muscle that I'd never had before, with my anxiety level plummeting, my mood leveling out, and my body no longer running on sugar. The compulsion to drink alcohol went away. I'm thrilled to say that I've been sober for as long as I've been carnivore. Had I not quit carbs, I'm not sure I'd have gotten there in this lifetime. Despite all of these wonderful changes, I could tell there was something still going on for me that was causing difficulties in my life. One day, as I was being yelled at over a small misunderstanding, which was not an unusual occurrence in that relationship, I said to him, "Just pretend I'm autistic." I didn't even know what that meant. So I got online and I learned. And what I learned was that it was the answer to the painful lifelong question, what the hell is wrong with me? What I was reading described me to a T. And just like that, I knew there was never anything wrong with me. I'm just wired differently. I process information differently. I see things differently. I experience things differently. But none of it is wrong. My way of being doesn't always work in a world that wasn't built for the likes of me, but I am finding my way. I can stop trying to be normal and stop trying to do all the things I see normal people do. I am learning how to relax, and life feels a lot less overwhelming. I notice, being on a carnivore diet, that I have a much higher tolerance for sensory stimuli and that I rarely have meltdowns anymore. I am still quite a naive creature, but I am wiser now, and I don't get myself into situations that aren't good for me. As I learned about autism and shared information with my family, it became apparent that my niece and my mother are also on the spectrum. My niece got a proper diagnosis at 16, and though she hasn't been swayed over to the carnivore side, she is more mindful about the amount of sugar she eats, and she eats a lot more meat and eggs than she used to. She certainly is not going to suffer the hell that I went through. It was revolutionary for my mother to understand herself through the lens of ASD. She could also see the undeniable changes in me since changing my diet, and she eventually relented and let my dad cook meat at home. She has even started eating a bit of poultry herself, which has got to be better than the pea protein powder she puts in her smoothies. When I switched to a carnivore diet, I discovered that a couple of days after eating dairy, my mind would become confused and agitated, bordering on rage, so I immediately stopped eating it. Living with a non-carnivore at the time, I still ate the occasional piece of dark chocolate, some almonds, or a bit of avocado, telling myself it was okay because they are keto-friendly foods. One day, I ate a few peanuts and I had the same insane reaction a couple of days later that I had when I ate dairy. Peanuts and dairy were staples in my diet from the start, and I believe my brain had been smoldering because of them. It took the ultimate elimination diet to figure it out. I'm grateful that my diet changed in 2018 when I could afford to eat steak every day and still save enough money to get a place of my own. Ah, the good old days. Then COVID struck and prices went up and the lockdowns happened and I lost my job. For an entire year, I lived on a single large bowl of ground beef a day and I survived. Now I know it's called intermittent fasting and OMAD, and that a lot of people do it on purpose. I eventually became more adventurous and tried all the organ meats, which are also affordable, and I still do eat them now and then. I used to use seasonings, especially with the stronger flavored organ meats, but now I just season with Redmond salt. I also shake a bit into my water too. At one point, the YouTubers started telling me that I wasn't eating enough fat, so I upped the fat and gained 20 pounds in 5 months. I couldn't afford a new wardrobe, so I cut back the fat again, and slowly my weight went back down by 12 pounds. It has been holding steady ever since, which tells me it's the appropriate weight for me. Finally, in my 40s, my body has become the body of a healthy woman. These days, I mostly eat ground beef and soft boiled eggs. I also eat tinned sardines and mackerel, pork rinds with chicken liver pate, slow cooked hunks of beef, pork belly, and occasional bacon. I don't track macros, I don't do intermittent fasting, I don't listen to YouTube influencers. I eat when I'm hungry and I eat till I'm full. I love the simplicity of it, love not being hungry all the time. I love being calm and clear and sane. I love feeling free. I turn 50 in a couple of months, and I feel better mentally, physically, and emotionally than I ever have. I'm still recovering from a lifetime of autistic burnout, and I still have significant challenges that come with being autistic, but I feel good about myself. That self loathing, self destructive, mentally ill girl is long gone. Other things that have gone too. I mentioned at the beginning that I was loopy on allergy medication. When I stopped eating plant matter, I stopped getting those awful seasonal allergies. An allergist condescendingly told me that that isn't how it works, but I beg to differ. Also, I'm very fair skinned and no longer burn in the sun, and my period became regular like clockwork for the first time ever. The terrible PMS symptoms I suffered every month went away completely. A few years ago, I went through a year of perimenopause, during which time my only symptom was the occasional hot flash, and those stopped when I quit drinking coffee. I'm now 2 years post-menopause with virtually no symptoms, which, from what I understand, is not the experience of most women. My sister went through a breast cancer ordeal a couple of years ago, and the treatments put her into menopause too. She has been carnivore for almost a year now, and she is not experiencing any menopausal symptoms either. It's wonderful to have her join me on this journey. It was a crazy ride when I was trying to figure things out on my own, not knowing if I was doing it right or if I was doing more harm than good. I'm glad I stayed on the ride long enough to see that it never was a roller coaster. It was a merry-go-round all along, and I was only spinning out of control because I was giving it the wrong fuel. What more can I say? Eating a carnivore diet has saved my life. Thanks for listening to my story. Sarah. Please join with me in congratulating Sarah on these massive results. And if you want to find out how we got into this mess in the first place, check out this video next.